My name is Audrey Appleton. I was 32 years old when my father looked me in the eye and told me I had 72 hours to hand over everything I had built. Every beam, every stone, every late night I spent crawling through drywall dust with a headlamp and a tape measure. My older brother Derek had burned through $1 million penthouse in Manhattan, spent it like water on bottle service and day trades. And now he wanted my place, my country house, the one Dad gave me as a joke. The one the whole family called the chicken coop. Bother is what none of them knew, what I had turned that house into, and what my mother had done 20 years before she died to make sure no one could ever take it from me. What happened when they pulled into my driveway with a rented moving truck, cardboard boxes stacked in the bed. That is the part I still replay. Welcome back to calm drama stories, where family drama meets quiet justice, and every story ends with a lesson worth remembering. If you have ever been the overlooked one in your family, this one is for you. Drop a comment and be sure to subscribe. My mother Laura died when I was 12, breast cancer. She fought it for 2 years and she fought it hard, but the cancer did not care how hard she fought. Derek was 15, old enough to remember everything, old enough to be the one Dad leaned on. They grieved together. Football games, hunting trips, long drives with the radio on. I grieved alone. I was the quiet one, the girl in the kitchen making her own lunches, catching the 615 bus, pulling straightays because nobody was going to pull them for me. 2 years after Mom died, Dad married Patricia. She was 58 now, blonde highlights, a voice like warm syrup, and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She walked into our house and rearranged the furniture. The first week. By the second week, she had rearranged the family. Derek was the future. That was the party line. He played varsity football. Dad went to every game. Patricia made a scrapbook. I joined the architecture club and built a model of the Chrysler building out off Balsa Wood. Nobody came to the showcase. Patricia had a way of making it sound generous. She would say things like, "Your sister doesn't need us hovering. She is independent." She said it with a little nod like she was complimenting me, but what she meant was not worth the investment. I did not argue. I filed it away the way you file a receipt you might need later. There is one thing I held on to from those years. A sentence my mother whispered the last time I sat beside her hospital bed. She said, "I left you something, Audrey. When you are ready, you will find it." I had no idea what she meant. Not then. 20 years later, Dad decided he wanted to divide his assets while he was still alive. He called it getting his affairs in order. Patricia called it being practical. I called it a dinner I should have skipped. We sat around the dining table at Dad's house in Connecticut, the same table Mom picked out in 1998. Patricia had replaced the chairs. She sat next to Dad, her hand resting on his forearm. Derek brought his girlfriend Chloe, a 27-year-old dental hygienist who had been dadding him for 4 months and already knew the Wi-Fi password. Dad stood at the head of the table, cleared his throat the way he always did when he wanted to sound like a CEO instead of a retired sales manager. "Derek," he said, "you get the apartment on East 73rd Street, 2 bedrooms, fully furnished. The unit is valued at $1.2 million. Derek grinned. Chloe squeezed his arm. Patricia smiled like a woman watching her plan come together. "Audrey," Dad said. He paused. "You get a property I own upstate. A house on 5 acres in Embury, Vermont. No photos, no description, no value mentioned." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a key. It was brass tarnished. A skeleton key, the old kind with the long barrel and the double bit at the end. It was so light I almost dropped it when he placed it in my palm. Derek leaned back in his chair and laughed. "Vermont. Seriously." Patricia touched her napkin to her lips. "It is a lovely area, very rural." Dad looked at me the way you look at someone you are doing a favor for and expecting them to thank you. "Your brother needs it more," he said. I closed my hand around the brass key. It was warm from his pocket. "Thank you, Dad," I said. "I meant it, but not for the reason," he thought. I drove 4 hours from Boston to Embury the following Saturday, alone, windows down, November air sharp enough to cut glass. The house sat at the end of a dirt road half a mile past the last mailbox. 5 acres of overgrown meadow bordered by sugar maples with their leaves already gone. Behind the property, the Green Mountains rose like a wall of gray and green. The house itself looked like it had been holding its breath for 30 years. The roof sagged on the left side. The porch railing was gone. Crabgrass pushed through the foundation cracks. The front door stuck, then gave with a groan that sounded like it had been waiting for someone to ask it to open. Inside, no heat, no hot water, pipes frozen behind walls that smelled like mildew and mouse droppings. Floorboards soft in the corners. A kitchen with one working burner and a sink that dripped brown. But the bones were extraordinary. Original stone foundation from 1890. Hand-cut oak beams running the length of the ceiling. A fireplace built from local field stone, wide enough to stand inside. And outside, 5 acres of rolling meadow, a creek with clear water running over smooth stones, and a view of the mountains that made my chest hurt. I called my best friend, Nora. She was a general contractor based in Burlington, 40 minutes north. "You need to see this place," I said. That evening, Derek sent a message to the family group chat. "Did you guys see Dad's chicken coop? Audrey is going to love her new barn." He added a laughing emoji. Patricia reacted with a ha-ha. Dad said nothing. I took a screenshot. I did not reply because here is what Derek did not understand. I am an architect. I specialize in historic renovation. And I was standing in a canvas. Back in Boston, I did what I always do when the world tries to hand me something broken. I made a plan. Zoning laws, historic preservation tax credits, Vermont building codes for commerciality. I read everything. I pulled county records. I studied comparable properties within a 100 m radius that had been converted into inns or retreats. The numbers were there. They were good. But before any of that, I made one phone call. Margaret Chen was 72 years old. She had been my mother's college roommate at Wellesley and later her estate attorney. I had not spoken to her in 6 years. The last time was at a cousin's wedding in New Hampshire, and she had held my hands and said, "When you are ready, call me." I called. "Ms. Chen," I said, "my mother mentioned she left me something. I just received a property in Vermont. Is there anything I should know?" There was a pause on the line, the kind of pause that carries weight. Audrey, her voice changed, dropped half a register. "I have been waiting for this call for a very long time. Can you come see me in person?" I said yes before I finished exhaling. We set a date for the following week. She lived in a cottage outside Hanover, New Hampshire, about 2 hours from Boston. I wrote the address on a Post-it note and stuck it to my bathroom mirror so I would see it every morning at work. During lunch breaks, I started sketching preliminary floor plans, load-bearing wall assessments, room configurations. I used the back of old blueprints from a project I had finished the month before. Margaret said one sentence before she hung up that kept me awake for 3 nights. "Your mother was very, very careful." Meanwhile, Derek was living the life Dad had paid for. The penthouse on East 73rd was everything you would expect. Florida-to-ceiling windows, a terrace with a view of Central Park, Italian marble in the bathroom, HOA fees of $2,800 a month, which Derek described as the cost of living well. He quit his sales job 2 weeks after getting the apartment, told Dad he was going to be an entrepreneur. What that actually meant was he sat at the kitchen island in his boxer's day trading with borrowed money on 3 monitors while Chloe posted their life on Instagram. Penthouse living, she captioned a photo of her feet on the terrace railing. She had 12,000 followers. I know this because Nora showed me. I did not follow Derek. I did not need to. Then Dad called. "How is the country house?" he asked. Casual, like he was asking about the weather. "Fine," I said. "You know, if it is too much for you, we can sell it and split the money. Might be the smart move." Translation: he wanted the land value for Derek's next scheme. "I am keeping it, Dad." He went quiet. The kind of quiet that said, I did not expect that answer. Patricia texted me separately 20 minutes later. "Don't be stubborn, honey. Your father is trying to help." I read the message. I put my phone face down on the counter. I opened my laptop and started building a spreadsheet. Renovation costs, timeline, revenue projections, break-even analysis. I did not text Patricia back. Some sentences do not deserve a reply. They deserve a spreadsheet. Margaret Chen's cottage sat on 2 acres of birch trees outside Hanover, New Hampshire. White clapboard, green shutters, a mailbox shaped like a barn, the kind of house that whispers instead of shouts. She opened the door before I knocked. 72 years old, silver hair pinned back, reading glasses around her neck, and eyes that looked like they had been waiting to deliver a message for 20 years. "Sit down, Audrey," she said. "I am going to tell you something your mother asked me to keep until you were ready." We sat at her kitchen table. She poured tea without asking if I wanted any. Then she placed a manila folder on the table and opened it. "Your mother bought the M. Barry property in the summer of 2004, 6 months before her diagnosis. She paid cash, $62,000 from a life insurance payout she received when your grandmother Grace passed in 2003. I stared at her. She bought it herself with her own separate funds, never commingled with your father's assets. Not $1 of marital money touched that purchase. Margaret turned to Paige. She then set up an irrevocable trust. The house and the 5 acres were placed in trust for you, Audrey. The trust matured on your 30th birthday. You became the sole legal owner 2 years ago. My hands were shaking. Does my father know? No. And there is more. She pulled out another document. During the divorce settlement in 2006, your father signed a quit-claim deed relinquishing any claim to properties held in your mother's name. He signed it. It is notarized. He probably does not remember it. There were a lot of documents that day. I sat with that for a long time. Why did she not tell me? Margaret smiled sad and proud at the same time. She said, "Audrey will know what to do with it when the time is right." She handed me a sealed envelope, cream-colored, my name on the front in my mother's handwriting. She asked me to give you this when you were ready. I think you are ready. I drove home with that envelope on the passenger seat like it was a living thing. If you have ever been told you got the short end of the stick and then turned it into something nobody saw coming, you know exactly how this feels. Hit that subscribe button and stay with me, because what happens next is the part I wish I could tell every person who has ever been underestimated. I did not open the envelope that night or the next night. I kept it on my nightstand, propped against a lamp, and I looked at it the way you look at a door you are not quite ready to walk through. Meanwhile, Derek's cracks were starting to show. He called me for the first time in 2 months not to check in, to vent. "Hey, I am thinking of renting out 2 rooms in the penthouse. Things are a little tight. Tight. A man living rent-free in a $1.2 million apartment was tight. Then Patricia called Dad in what I later learned was a mild panic. Derek needed help with the building's assessment fee. $4,200 he did not have. Dad sent him $15,000 from his retirement account. Patricia approved. Nobody mentioned it to me. I found out from my cousin Ellen at a family birthday party 2 weeks later. She said it like she assumed I already knew. I did not. Then Dad called me. "Can you lend your brother some money just to get him through a rough patch?" "No, Dad." Silence. "Then you are so selfish sometimes, Audrey, after everything this family has done for you." I hung up. I sat on my couch in my rented apartment in Boston. I looked at the envelope on my nightstand. I looked at my laptop. I opened the laptop, not the envelope. That night, I typed a business plan until 3:00 in the morning. Not because I was angry, because I was finally sure. I took a 3-month leave of absence from my firm in March. Packed my car with boots, thermal layers, a tool bag, and the blueprints I had been drawing since December. Then I drove to Vermont. Nora met me at the property with her truck, a crew of 4, and a look on her face that said she was either excited or terrified. "This is either going to be the best thing you ever did," she said, surveying the sagging roof, or the most expensive mistake in Vermont. Day 1, I spread the blueprints on the bare living room floor. 12 sheets of possibility laid out on boards that had not seen a broom in a decade. The plan was ambitious. Structural reinforcement, new cedar roof, restore the original stone fireplace, convert 3 bedrooms and the barn into 12 guest rooms, build a farm-to-table kitchen, design a meditation garden along the creek. Budget $400,000. I had $80,000 in savings. An SBA loan covered $260,000. Nora invested $60,000 of her own money as a silent partner. I did not tell my family any of this. The first week, we ripped out the interior walls down to the studs. Under a layer of water-damaged drywall, we found the original oak frame, hand-honeyed, 130 years old, still solid. Under a strip of peeling wallpaper in the upstairs hallway, I found something else. A small pencil drawing. A house. Below it in handwriting I would recognize anywhere, a single word. Someday my mother had been inside this house. She had stood in this hallway. She had pressed a pencil-to this wall and drawn a picture of what she wanted it to become. I touched the drawing with my fingertip and left it where it was. The mocking did not stop. It escalated. Derrick posted a photo from his penthouse terrace, Manhattan skyline behind him, whiskey glass in hand, and captioned it, "Some people renovate chicken coops. I am renovating my portfolio." He tagged me. Nora saw it first. Want me to accidentally run over his Instagram account with a backhoe? Patricia called on a Tuesday evening while I was sanding the front porch railing by hand. "Your father is worried you are wasting money, Audrey. Why don't you sell the property and invest in something smart?" What she meant was give the money to Derrick. Thanksgiving. I drove 4 hours to Connecticut because that is what you do when you still believe showing up matters. At the table, Dad raised his glass and toasted Derrick's entrepreneurial spirit. He called him a risk-taker, a visionary. No mention of the $15,000 from Dad's retirement account. No mention of my renovation. Derrick, 2 glasses of wine in, looked across the table at me and grinned. "Hey, Audrey, how is the chicken coop? Found any eggs yet?" The table laughed. Chloe, Patricia, even Dad cracked a smile. I cut a piece of turkey, chewed it slowly, swallowed. "It is coming along." Patricia leaned in. "Honey, you could have had the money. A girl your age should be thinking about settling down, not playing contractor." I set my fork down, folded my napkin. "Thank you for dinner, Dad." I drove back to Vermont that same night, 4 hours in the dark, headlights cutting through freezing rain on Route 7. Nora had left the porch light on for me. There was a plate of pasta in the microwave and a sticky note on the counter. Their loss. I ate the pasta. I went back to work at 5 the next morning. By month 6, the exterior was unrecognizable. New cedar roof, stone walls repointed by a mason Nora found in Rutland who had worked on 3 covered bridges. The front porch rebuilt with reclaimed lumber from a barn and stove that was being torn down. The garden, still a work in progress, was already showing rows of lavender and basil along the stone path to the creek. The local community started showing up. A dairy farmer named Hal offered to supply cream and butter at wholesale. A woman named Iris, who ran a ceramic studio in town, made custom dishware for the kitchen. A retired artist named Sam painted a mural of the Green Mountains in the lobby. No charge. He said he just wanted to be part of something that was coming back to life. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, the opposite was happening. Derrick's day trading losses hit $47,000. The penthouse HOA assessment came due another $6,200 on top of the monthly fees he was already behind on. Chloe moved out. She left a note on the kitchen island that said I didn't sign up for broke. Derrick called Dad again. This time he needed more. Dad sent another check. I did not know the amount. I learned about it from Ellen again at Christmas in the kitchen of Dad's house while Patricia was serving pie she did not bake. He sent another $20,000. Ellen whispered from his pension this time. I dried a plate, set it on the counter. "That is his choice," I said. Ellen looked at me. "You are remarkably calm about all this." I was not calm, I was building. There is a difference. Calm people sit still. People who are building just look calm from the outside. One evening in early February, 9 months into the renovation, I sat alone in the half-finished living room. The fireplace was working again. Nora and I had rebuilt the flue ourselves. Covered in soot for 3 days straight. The oak beams above me were cleaned and sealed, glowing amber in the firelight. I held the envelope Margaret had given me, cream-colored, my name in my mother's handwriting. The ink had faded slightly. The seal was still firm. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper lined, the kind torn from a spiral notebook. My mother's writing, small, careful, the letters leaning slightly right the way mine do. My darling Audrey, if you are reading this, then Margaret kept her promise and you found your way to Embury. I bought this house the summer I turned 40. The same summer the doctors told me I had 2 years left. I could have spent that money on another round of treatment. I chose not to. I wanted to leave you something no one could take away, not your father, not anyone. I stopped reading. The fireplace crackled. A log shifted. This house is built on limestone like you. People will walk right past it. They will call it ordinary, but limestone holds up cathedrals. Remember that? She signed it, Mom, not Laura, not your mother, just Mom. I sat on that bare floor and cried. The kind of crying that does not make noise, the kind that just pours out of you like water through a cracked foundation until there is nothing left but the structure underneath. Nora found me 20 minutes later. She sat down on the floor beside me. She did not ask what happened. She did not say anything. She just held my hand and looked at the fire and let me finish. When I was done, I folded the letter back into the envelope and pressed it to my chest. Limestone, I said. Nora squeezed my hand. Limestone. By month 10, the interior was nearly finished. 12 guest rooms, each one designed around a different Vermont season or landscape. The birch room, the sugar room, the creek room. Handmade quilts sourced from a collective in Woodstock. Locally forged iron hardware. Floors sanded and oiled until they glowed like honey. The kitchen was my proudest work. Stainless steel counters, a commercial range, a walk-in pantry stocked with preserves I had made myself that summer. Tomato jam, pickled ramps, maple butter. The farm-to-table concept was real. Hal's Dairy delivered twice a week. The garden was producing greens, herbs, root vegetables. I named the retreat Limestone House after my mother's letter. A local food blogger visited in October. She had heard about the project from Sam, the mural artist. She stayed one night, ate dinner in the kitchen, walked the garden at dawn. Her review went out on a Tuesday. Limestone House is what happens when someone builds a place with their hands and their whole heart. Bookings started trickling in, then flowing, then flooding. The Vermont Tourism Board contacted me about featuring Limestone House in their spring campaign. I said yes. Then on a cold Sunday in November, I posted a single photo on my personal Instagram. The exterior of Limestone House at sunset, warm light in the windows, the stone walls glowing gold, the sign by the front path hand-carved in cedar. No caption, no tags, no filter. 800 likes in 24 hours. People I had not heard from in years. High school classmates, old professors, my cousin Ellen, Nora's mother. The notification I dreaded came at 11 that night. A comment from my father's account, the one Patricia managed. Nice, call me. I did not call. 3 days later, something happened that changed everything. We were finishing the master suite, the last room in the renovation. It was the original bedroom on the second floor, the one with the bay window overlooking the creek. The stone wall behind the bed had a section that sounded hollow when Nora tapped it with a hammer. Could be an old chimney flue, she said, or just dead space. We opened it carefully. Behind the plaster, tucked into a cavity between two stones, was a cedar box about the size of a shoebox. The wood was dark with age, but the hinges still worked. The lid was sealed with a thin strip of wax. I broke the seal. Inside, wrapped in a piece of blue cotton, were 3 things. A brass skeleton key identical to the one my father had handed me at that dinner table. Same barrel, same double bit, same weight, but this one was polished, cared for. Underneath it, a note in my mother's hand for the front door, the original love, Mom. A second document, a photocopy of the irrevocable trust, highlighted in yellow, annotated in the margins with my mother's handwriting. Notes like filed with Addison County Clerk and Ray signed quit claim, see page 12, and Audrey turns 30 in 2024. My mother had hidden this box inside the walls of the house she bought for me. She had placed it there, knowing that one day I would renovate this place, that I would tear open these walls, that I would find what she left behind. I held both keys side by side, the one Dad gave me, tarnished and light, the one Mom hid for me, polished and warm. 2 keys, 1 house, and only one of them was given with love. I called Margaret that afternoon. I found the box. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "She told me you would. She said the house would tell you when it was time." It took exactly 4 days for the phone to ring. Audrey, Dad's voice, not casual this time. Controlled. "I saw your Instagram post. That does not look like the same house. It is not the same house. How much did you spend on this? Enough." A pause. "Then where did you get the money? You did not take a loan against the property, did you? Because technically that property was a gift from me. And technically what, Dad?" He stammered. He actually stammered, which was a sound I had never heard from Ray Appleton in 32 years. He recovered. "I want to come see it. The grand opening is in April. You are welcome to book a room. Book Audrey. I am your father and Limestone House is a business. I will send you the website link." Click. Patricia called 20 minutes later. "On cue, your father is very hurt, Audrey. He just wants to be involved. You know how he is. He was not involved in the renovation. He does not get involved in the result. That is not fair. He gave you that property. He gave me what he thought was worthless. I made it worth something. Those are different things." Silence. Then Patricia shifted tactics. The sweet voice returned. The one that sounded like syrup and tasted like vinegar. "You know your father, he just thinks your brother needs it more. Derek is really struggling right now." There it was again. That sentence. The refrain of my entire childhood spoken like scripture. "Your brother needs it more." I could have screamed. I could have thrown my phone at the wall. Instead, I said, "Good night, Patricia," and I hung up. I sat on the porch and watched the sun set behind the mountains. I already knew what was coming. I could feel it the way you feel a storm 2 valleys away. They were coming for this place. The catalyst was a mistake, not mine, Nora's. She was documenting the final phase of the renovation for her contractor portfolio and posted an Instagram story. A slow pan through the 12 finished guest rooms, the commercial kitchen, the meditation garden, the mountain view from the terrace, professional quality. 30 seconds of footage that showed exactly what Limestone House had become. And in one frame on a table by the reception desk, my blueprints were visible, 12 sheets rolled open. The full scope of the project laid out in ink. Derek watched that story 4 times. I know because Nora's account showed the view count. He called Dad that same night. "Dad, do you see this?" His voice was high, urgent. The voice of a man who has been drowning and just spotted a boat. "She turned that dump into a resort. That place has to be worth 3-4 million. I know what they said because Derek, in a rare display of stupidity that even I did not predict, accidentally sent a voice memo to the family group chat instead of to Dad alone. Ray, I gave her that property. Derek, exactly, you gave it. That means it is family property. We should be part of this. Ray, let me think about it. Derek, voice cracking. Dad, I need this. I am about to lose the penthouse. I am 3 months behind. My life is falling apart. Then Patricia in the background. That property was yours to give, Ray, which means it is yours to take back. I listened to that voice memo sitting on the floor of my finished kitchen surrounded by dishes Iris had made by hand. I listened to it once. Then I saved it and I called Margaret. "It is starting," I said. "I know," she said. "I am ready." Listen, if you have ever built something with your own hands and watched someone try to claim it, you know this feeling in your chest right now. If this story is hitting close to home, drop a comment and tell me yours. And stick around because what my father does next, I still cannot believe he actually said it. April came, grand opening. Limestone House was fully operational. 12 rooms booked solid through September. 8 employees, all local. A wait list for October and November. Revenue projections that made my accountant in Burlington whistle through his teeth. Then, Architectural Digest called. Not the local paper, not a blog. Architectural Digest, the magazine. They wanted to feature Limestone House in their summer issue. They said the story, an architect transforming an abandoned Vermont farmhouse into one of the most sought-after boutique retreats in the Northeast, was exactly the kind of piece their readers loved. The photographer came on a Tuesday. She shot the property in morning light and golden hour. The article went live on a Thursday. The headline read, "How One Architect Turned a Forgotten Vermont Farmhouse into the Northeast's Most Sought-After Retreat." 200,000 views in 48 hours. The wait lists at 14 months. The property was appraised at $3.8 million. Land, building, and business goodwill combined. I told no one in my family. I had learned good news shared becomes good news stolen. I called Margaret instead. If my father tries to claim the property, what happens? He signed a quitclaim deed in 2006. The trust matured in 2024. You are the sole legal owner. He has no claim. None. What if he does not care about legal? Margaret paused. Then you show him the paperwork and you let the law do what the law does. My phone rang on Friday. It was Derek, so you are basically rich now. Derek said, "No, hello, no, how are you?" Just that sentence spoken with the tone of a man doing math he did not like. I'm a business owner. Derek, come on, I saw the article. Every design on Instagram is reposting it. You are all over the place. Is there something you need? Pause. Dad wants to have a family meeting. I closed my eyes. About what? About the property. About what is fair. Fair. That word from Derek's mouth tasted like rust. Fair was Dad giving him $1 million penthouse and me a house with frozen pipes. Fair was 20 years of football games and forgotten architecture showcases. Fair was Patricia whispering to my father that I was independent while she funneled his retirement into Derek's bar tabs. When? I asked Saturday. Dad's house. Fine. I hung up, sat on the porch of Limestone House, and watched a pair of goldfinches land on the lavender border. The air smelled like cedar and fresh-cut grass. In the kitchen, my sous chef Marcus was testing a new butternut squash soup for the fall menu. This was mine. Every stone, every beam, every dollar of debt and sweat and late-night calculation, mine, and they were going to try to take it. I opened my laptop and began organizing documents. The trust, the quitclaim deed, the appraisal, the SBA loan issued solely in my name, secured against a property that was solely mine, the renovation invoices totaling $397,000. I placed everything in a manila folder. Then I placed the Mantle folder in my suitcase. I was not going to a family meeting. I was going to a closing argument, the dining table, the same one Mom picked out, the same chairs Patricia replaced. Dad sat at the head, Patricia on his right, Derek on his left. I sat alone on the opposite end. My suitcase was in the car. Dad cleared his throat. Audrey, we are all very proud of what you have done with the Vermont property. Thank you, but we need to talk about equity. I folded my hands on the table. Go on. Patricia leaned forward. Your father gave you that property. The improvements you made are wonderful, truly, but the underlying asset is a family asset. It is not a family asset, Audrey. It is not, but continue. Derek jumped in. I think we should restructure. I can run the business side, management, marketing, bookings. You focus on the design and the food. 50-50. I looked at him. My older brother, 35 years old, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, wearing a watch he could no longer afford to service. You want 50% of a business you had nothing to do with. I would bring a lot to the table. What table? You have never managed anything except I stopped myself. Breathed. No, Derek's jaw tightened. I need this, Audrey. My situation is complicated. Your situation is not my problem. Dad slammed his palm on the table. Be reasonable. We are family. I stood up. My chair scraped the hardwood. Dad, you gave me a house you thought was worthless. Now it is worth something and you want it back. That is not family. That is a transaction. Patricia, do not dramatic. I am not being dramatic. I am being accurate. And I am going back to Vermont. I walked to the front door. Behind me, I heard Patricia whispering to Dad and Derek saying something about lawyers. Before I reached the highway, my phone buzzed. A text from Dad. This is not over. I set my phone on the passenger seat face down and I drove. The foreclosure notice arrived at Derek's penthouse on a Monday. 90 days to resolve the outstanding balance or vacate. The building management company posted a formal notice in Thelaby. His neighbors saw it. Derrick called Dad 3 times that day. I know because Patricia told Ellen, and Ellen told me the numbers were simple. Derrick owed $63,000 in back HOA fees, building assessments, and a personal loan he had taken against the apartment's equity, an apartment he did not technically own outright, since Dad had kept the deed in his own name as protection. Dad did not have $63,000. He had already sent $35,000 from his retirement over the past year. Patricia's savings were tied up in a fixed annuity that would not mature for 4 years. So Patricia came up with a plan. The Vermont property is the solution, she told Dad over dinner. We just need Audrey to cooperate. Derrick texted me the next morning. I read it standing in the limestone house kitchen while Marcus prepped breakfast for 14 guests. I know you think you are better than us, but that house was Dad's to give and Dad's to take. We are getting a lawyer. I did not respond. I forwarded the message to Margaret. Margaret called me back in 9 minutes. Let them get a lawyer. The trust predates any gift. Your father cannot give away what was never his. The quitclaim deed is ironclad. I drafted it myself. Derrick did get a lawyer, a college friend who practiced real estate in New Jersey. The friend pulled the Addison County property records, confirmed the deed was clean in Audrey Appleton's name, and told Derrick there was nothing obvious to challenge. But Derrick did not tell his family that part. He told them, "My lawyer is looking into it." Hope is a dangerous thing when it is built on a lie. The phone rang at 11:14 at night. I was reading in bed a book about Japanese joinery that I had been meaning to finish for 6 months. I almost did not answer. Audrey, Dad's voice, but different, lower, tired. The voice of a man sitting alone in a dark room, calling the child he had spent 30 years overlooking. Your mother, he stopped, started again. She was the smart one. I know I was not. I was not good at the being fair part. I said nothing. I let the silence stretch because silence is sometimes the most generous thing you can offer a person who is trying to be honest. But Derrick is drowning. He is my son, and I am asking you as your father to help him. Dad, I would help Derrick. I would, but not by giving up what I built. That is not what I am asking. Yes, it is. Another silence, longer this time. I could hear him breathing. I could hear the television in the background. Patricia watching something in the other room. Then his voice changed, the softness left. The old pattern returned like a record, skipping back to a familiar groove. That property was supposed to be nothing, Audrey, a patch of land and a broken house. You were supposed to sell it and move on. You gave me what you thought I deserved. I turned it into what I actually deserve. He did not respond to that. He could not. So he said the only thing he knew how to say. Your brother needs it more. I heard it clearly. The refrain of my entire life. Spoken like truth, believed like gospel. Good night, Dad. I hung up, set the phone face down, picked up my book. He had come so close. One more sentence and it could have been different, but the pattern was stronger than the man. The next morning, I was at the reception desk reviewing summer bookings and confirming a group reservation for a corporate retreat from Boston when my phone rang. Dad, speaker phone. I could hear the slight echo that meant he was in the kitchen and the faint breathing that meant Patricia was listening. Audrey, I am going to make this simple. Okay, you have 72 hours to sign the property back to me. I will compensate you fairly for the renovation costs. We will have it appraised and I will pay you what the improvements are worth. But the land and the house come back to this family. I let the sentence sit in the air. Let it finish filling the room. The land and the house, I repeated slowly. Patricia's voice came through the speaker. Derrick will take over the business. He has management experience from his time in sales. Derrick does not have management experience. Derrick has an Instagram account. That is disrespectful. That is factual. Dad's voice hardened. 72 hours. Audrey, if you do not cooperate, we will pursue legal options. I gave you that property. I have every right to take it back. I stood up from the desk, walked to the window, looked at the garden, the lavender border, the stone path, the creek shining in the morning light. My garden, my stone path, my creek. No, Dad, you cannot. We will see about that. The line went dead. I stood still for 30 seconds. Then I called Margaret. It is happening, I know, I have been expecting this. The documents are already prepared. I will have them courier to you by tomorrow morning. I hung up, looked at the calendar on the wall. 72 hours. The clock started. But they did not know I had been counting down for 20 years. I spent the next 60 hours doing what I do best, preparing. Margaret sent the package by overnight courier. It arrived Thursday morning in a padded legal envelope. Inside the original irrevocable trust document, notarized, sealed, 22 years old, and bulletproof. The certified copy of the quitclaim deed Ray signed in 2006, the Addison County filing records. I already had the property appraisal, $3.8 million. The SBA loan documents issued solely in my name, secured against a property that was solely mine. The renovation invoices, the business license, the tax filings. I placed everything in the manila folder. I rolled up my blueprints, the 12 sheets I had spread on that bare floor the first day, and tucked them under my arm. Nora came by that evening. She stood in the doorway of the office and watched me organize. "You want me there?" "No," I said. "This I do alone," she nodded. "I will be at my place with a bottle of wine and a phone that is fully charged." I smiled. "Thank you. For what?" "For never once calling it a chicken coop." She left. I sat at the desk and watched Thelust light leave the mountains. I touched the brass key at my collar, the one from the cedar box. Mom's key. The one she had hidden in the wall she knew I would one day tear open. He said 72 hours. I gave him 60. Saturday morning, I put on a clean white shirt, jeans, work boots, the key necklace. I carried the folder and the blueprints to the front porch, sat down, and waited. They arrived at 8 in the morning. A white Ford F-150 turning off the county road onto the gravel drive, moving slowly like it was not sure of the address. Ray was behind the wheel. Derek was in the passenger seat. Patricia sat in the back row next to a stack of flattened moving boxes. They brought boxes, actual cardboard boxes, tape, a dolly. They came to take my things. The truck rolled to a stop in front of the entrance. The gravel crunched, the engine cut. Derek stepped out first. He wore khakis and a polo shirt like he was going to a job interview. He looked up at the building and his mouth opened. And for a moment he forgot why he was there. The last time Derek had seen this property, it was a ruin. Group chat photos of sagging walls and broken windows. The chicken coop. Now restored stone exterior glowing in the morning sun. New cedar roof the color of dark honey. A handmade sign by the path. Limestone house established 2024. Window boxes with trailing ivy. The meditation garden visible behind the stone wall. The faint sound of the creek in the background. Rye got out slower, older. He looked at the building the way you look at something you gave away and suddenly want back. Patricia climbed down with her purse on her shoulder and her sunglasses pushed up on her head. "Well," she said, "it certainly looks different." 3 guests were leaving through the front entrance, rolling suitcases behind them, a couple from Connecticut and a woman from Montreal. They waved at me on the porch. "Thank you for an incredible stay, Audrey. We already rebooked for September." Ray watched them walk to their car, watched them load their luggage, watched them drive away. He straightened his jacket. He had rehearsed his speech. I had rehearsed mine. "Audrey," Dad said, walking toward the porch steps. "We discussed this." I was sitting in the Adirondack chair I had built myself. Red cedar, hand-joined, wide enough to hold a coffee mug on the arm. I did not stand up. "Have you prepared the paperwork?" he asked. "I have paperwork." "Yes." Derek started walking toward the main entrance. I held up a hand. "Derek, that is a private business entrance, guests only." "I am not a guest. I am going to be running this place." "No, you are not." Ray's face re-ended. He climbed the first step. "Audrey, enough. I gave you this property. I am your father and I am telling you." I stood in my left hand, the manila folder. In my right, my blueprints rolled tight. The brass key rested against my collarbone. "Dad, sit down. There is something you need to see." "Patricia," from behind Ray, "we did not come here to look at blueprints." "You are right. I said you came to take something that does not belong to you. But before you embarrass yourselves in front of my staff and my guests, sit down and read this." Ray looked at the folder, then at me, then at the 3 employees visible through the lobby window. Marcus, our front desk manager, Julia, and Hal, who had come by to drop off the morning cream. He sat down on the porch bench. Patricia stood behind him. Derrick leaned against the railing with his arms crossed. I opened the folder, placed the first document on the porch table between us. This is an irrevocable trust executed in 2004 by Laura Appleton, my mother, your first wife. I looked at Patricia when I said that. She did not blink. The trust establishes this property and the 5 acres it sits on as held in trust for me. Audrey Appleton maturing on my 30th birthday. Dad looked at the document. His face went white. I continued, steady voice, measured pace the way you read a blueprint, one line at a time. Mom bought this property with her own separate funds. A life insurance payout from Grandma Grace. $62,000. It was never a marital asset. It was never yours to give, Dad. Ray opened his mouth, closed it. I placed the second document on the table. This is the quitclaim deed you signed during the divorce settlement in 2006. You relinquished any claim to properties held in Laura Appleton's name. You signed it. It is notarized. Your attorney at the time countersigned. I do not remember signing. Page 3. Your signature dated March 14, 2006. Derrick pushed off the railing. This is garbage. You faked this. The trust was filed with the Addison County Clerk's Office in 2004. You can call them. The number is on page 4. The quitclaim deed is recorded with the Connecticut Superior Court. Both are public records. Patricia grabbed Ray's arm. Say something, Ray. Do something. Ray was staring at the trust document. His fingers trembled against the edge of the page. Laura did this, he said quietly, like he was talking to someone who was not there. Yes, I said. She did. Derrick's face was red. He paced the porch. This is insane. Dad, call a lawyer. She cannot just she can, I said, and she did. 20 years ago, I picked up my blueprints, held them like a torch. I built this from the ground up. Every line on these pages is mine. Every dollar, every late night, every board and beam and stone. I touched the brass key at my collar. Mom's key. The one hidden in the wall she knew I would one day open. You said your brother needs it more. I looked at my father. You were right, Dad. He needed more. But this was never yours to give. The porch was quiet. A goldfinch landed on the garden wall and sang. I folded the documents back into the folder. I think you should go. Derrick kicked one of the empty boxes off the porch. It tumbled down the steps and landed in the lavender. This is not over, he said. The same sentence Dad had texted me weeks ago. Like father, like son, same words, same impotence behind them. Patricia pulled out her phone. We are calling our lawyer right now. Your lawyer can call my attorney, I said. Margaret Chen. She drafted the trust. She has been waiting 20 years for this conversation. Patricia's face tightened. She recognized the name. Margaret had been at my mother's funeral. She had sent flowers every year on the anniversary. Ray had not moved. He sat on the porch bench, head bowed, hands on his knees. He looked old. Not elderly old. The way a building looks when you finally see the cracks you have been ignoring. Then said it quiet enough that Derrick and Patricia almost missed it. Your mother always was smarter than me. It was the closest thing to an apology Ray Appleton would ever give. I recognized it for what it was. I did not comfort him. You should go, Dad. There is nothing here for you to take. Derrick slammed the truck door. Patricia guided Ray down the porch steps and into the cab. The stack of boxes sat in the bed of the F-150, empty and flat. The truck reversed out of the gravel drive. I watched it until the dust settled and the road was quiet again. The goldfinch was still singing. I sat on the porch for a long time after they left. The coffee in my mug went cold. The sun climbed above the tree and warmed the stone wall behind me. Nora called at 9:30. How did it go? They left with empty boxes. I will be there in an hour with wine. It is 9:30 in the morning, and I laughed, the first laugh in weeks. I hung up and walked through Limestone House, slowly touching the walls, the oak beams, the iron hardware Iris had forged, the kitchen counter where Marcus was already plating breakfast for the morning guests. I stopped at the reception desk. On the wall behind it, 2 frames hung side by side. On the left, the Architectural Digest article printed and matted. On the right, my mother's pencil drawing. The little house she had sketched on the hallway wall, carefully removed and preserved under glass. Below it in her handwriting, someday was here. I touched the glass over the drawing, ran my finger along the lines of the house she imagined before I was old enough to hold a pencil. This was what she saw, not a ruin, not a chicken coop, a future. My future built on limestone. 3 months later, the penthouse was gone. The bank took it in July. Derek had 60 days to vacate, which he stretched to 75 before the building management changed the locks. He moved back into Dad and Patricia's house in Connecticut, the guest room that still had Derek's high school football trophies on the shelf. He was 35 years old. Ray and Patricia sold their house in August, downsized to a 2-bedroom condo in Stamford. Part of the reason was the market. Part of it was the $43,000 Rye had funneled to Derek over the past 18 months from accounts he could not afford to drain. Derek took a job at a car dealership in Norwalk. $42,000 a year plus commission. His Instagram account went dark in September. Patricia sent me one text. "I hope you are happy." I read it. I set my phone down. I did not respond. There are sentences that do not require a reply. They require the person who wrote them to sit with the silence and think about what they actually meant. My cousin Ellen called. We heard what happened. The whole family is talking about it. What are they saying? That your mom was a genius and that you built something incredible. Margaret called too. They consulted a lawyer, an actual real estate attorney in Hartford this time. He reviewed everything and told them they have no case, none. It is done. Thank you, Margaret, for all of it. Do not thank me, dear. Thank your mother. She is the one who saw this coming. Year 2, Limestone House was named one of Vermont's top 10 boutique retreats by a regional travel magazine. The waiting list held steady at 12 months. Revenue in the first full calendar year, $780,000. Net after expenses and loan payments, enough to hire a full-time general manager and return to architecture part-time. I kept designing. Took on 2 restoration projects in the area. A historic schoolhouse in Ripton and a covered bridge in Weybridge. I worked from the office at Limestone House. Blueprints spread on the same desk where I had once eaten cold soup and cried over my mother's letter. In October, I hosted a weekend retreat called Letters to Moms. It was for women who had lost their mothers' young 12 spots. It sold out in 4 hours. We wrote letters. We read them aloud by the fireplace. Some of us cried, some of us laughed. All of us held something heavy and set it down for a little while. In the garden beside the creek, I placed a limestone marker, hand-carved by the mason who had repointed the walls. It read, "For Laura Appleton, who saw cathedrals in limestone." 6 months after the confrontation, I wrote my father a letter. Paper, not a text, not an email. Paper and ink because some things need weight. Dad, I do not hate you, but I will not pretend the way you divided this family was fair. You chose a side. You chose it early. You chose it often, and you chose it with money that was not always yours to spend. The door at Limestone House ice open to anyone who books a room. That includes you, but it will never include anyone who walks through it expecting to take what is not theirs. I hope Derek finds his way. I hope you find peace. But I found my foundation a long time ago. Mom made sure of that. I sealed the envelope, drove to the post office in town, dropped it in the box. I did not expect a reply. 3 weeks later, Ellen told me what happened. Ray read the letter at his kitchen table. Patricia read it over his shoulder. He folded it back into the envelope and placed it in a drawer. He did not speak for the rest of the evening. Some letters are not meant to start conversations. They are meant to end patterns. Here is what I learned. The people who underestimate you will always come back when you succeed, not to celebrate, to collect. And the only thing you owe them is the truth, that you built this, that it was always yours. And that no one gets to rewrite your story once you have already finished building it. That is my story: a brass key, a cedar box, and a house that was never a chicken coop. If this reminded you of your own foundation, share this video, drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next.